Hey Sainers, welcome back to the Saints TV YouTube channel. In this video, it's obviously going to be the preview for round 2. We take on Fremantle, 6:20 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The last game of the round at Optus Stadium. It's a big one. It's a big one because of how round 1 went, pretty much. This is already a mini final for us. If we go 0-2, leading into Richmond, it's not looking too good for us, but if we can bounce back, then we balance the table out at 1-1 and we can kind of reset and get over round 1. But if we don't, it's going to be a battle. And for me, this is a very winnable game. Only 2 rounds ago, technically, we played them in the last game of the season last year, and we beat them by 58 points, 49-107, I believe. And a big reason for that was we ran, we spread, we lowered our eyes, and we played smart going inside 50, kicking to targets and not bombing to their heads. And we're going to have to do the same in this game. We're playing at Optus Stadium. It's a big ground. There's opportunities to run and spread. Now, you can't see it. Maybe you can. I've got my trusty notes. I don't know if you can actually read that, but for me, in the red is what our risks are in terms of playing Fremantle. So midfield, obviously a big risk. For me, it's very similar to the Collingwood game in that they're very seasoned. They've got a lot of experience in there, but they've also got a lot of young talent coming through. Sarong, Brayshaw, to name a few. And then you've got Fife potentially playing, as well as Mundy. And then obviously their ruck in Darcy, who's a very talented young ruckman. It's got some serious power there. It's obviously up and coming and it's not established like Collingwood's that have been in grand finals and done it for the last 5-6 years. But it's a midfield that you can't take lightly. And again, it's one of those games where whoever wins the midfield battle, that'll go a lot, like 90% of the way to winning the game. So for us, I really hope we've learned from last week because we played Collingwood's midfield terribly. We weren't defensive side at all. They had 2 players defensive side on our end, and that just allowed them to sweep around and get easy possessions, and we just let them do what they wanted. And if you look at the game, apart from the third quarter, that's where they dictated the game, and it was one in the middle. They kicked 5 goals, 5 or something from direct centre clearances, and that's just not good enough. And if we're doing that again to Fremantle, it could be a long day. So midfield, absolutely key if we want to win this game. The next one, I think, you may not agree, but it's Rory Lobb. He kicked 2 goals, 3 last week, but he could have kicked a bag. He missed a few easy ones, and he's one of those players that can go into the ruck, but he's actually quite damaging forward. And based on how we struggled with Collingwood last week in our backline, Dougal Howard's probably going to take him and have to be switched on because Mason Cox, for all the shit that we give him, took a few good contested marks on Dukes last week and made him look a bit silly. So Dukes needs to be on game. He didn't have a great game last week like a lot of Sainers, but we need to curb the influence of someone like a Rory Lobb because he's the sort of player that could easily get off the chain and cause us some problems. So again, if we want to win this game, that's the sort of player in their forward half that we need to keep quiet. The next one for me is Luke Ryan. I think this is kind of a no-brainer. They've got a couple of other players in the backline, but Cox as well is one. A couple of tall defenders. Can we not bomb? If we go bombing in this game, these guys are going to have the biggest possessions ever, and they're going to rebound and score easily from that way. So there's 2 things here. Midfield battle, but obviously the way we use the footy. And I'll get into that a bit later. That's in my green, in what we need to do. But for me, Luke Ryan is one that if he has a big game, Fremantle are probably comfortably winning. But if he's not, I think that there's a chance that we can win. And he had a quiet one last week and they just snuck over the line against Adelaide by 1 point. So it might be, 1 point to Adelaide doesn't seem like much, but it's still 4 points, it's confidence, and they're back in front of their home crowd. The last one, or the second last one, is Fife, whether he plays or not. I've heard that he's probably not going to play, so that's great. Because usually our luck is we play these teams and then they bring their stars back and we get a bit unlucky that way. And their midfield, as it is without Fife, is probably a challenge for us with our injuries. But to have Fife come back in as well with Mundy, Sarong, Brayshaw, these sort of names going through there, it's not going to be easy. So hopefully he doesn't make it for the game. But that's one question mark there, whether he does or not. So fingers crossed he doesn't. And lastly, home ground advantage. I feel like we always play well going to Perth, just because it's a bigger ground. But I think we obviously don't seem to handle the big home ground crowds well yet. I don't know if it's because we've got such a new team, such a young team, that they get overawed by the expectation of the fans, 40,000, 30,000 Saners or whatever it was last week, going to a game and expecting a result. Whereas this is the sort of game that we always win. We're not expected to win. Their favourites just. They're $1.66. We're $2.23. But this is the sort of game that we all know too well that we'll go away, play away from home and get a result and then come back against Richmond the next week, play at home and struggle. So, I'll take a win, but we need to start sustaining some performances at Marvel. But I think based on round one and how we went, it's not a bad time to get away and to just play up against the walls, because we always love that. We always love being the underdogs, love having everyone write us off after 1 week, and then inevitably we kind of bounce back and get a result. It's just about maintaining it after that. So hopefully the boys can kind of rally together, get away a couple of days early, actually train on the ground, because we never train on Marvel. It'd be good to go to Optus Stadium, get a few sessions in there, and then come game day, we're ready to go on Sunday. Now, for me, I don't know if you can read that again. This one, run and spread, no-brainer. Based on last week, we didn't do any of that. We played shit. We let Collingwood run and spread, and that opened up the game. And for me, bombing and run and spread are kind of linked. If you don't run and spread, you bomb. If you run and spread, we won't bomb. When you run and spread, there are leading options. There are players everywhere. You can go there, you can go there. There's a short one. There's a 40-meter one. Players are always on the move. And when that's happening, you're not kicking on their heads. And it's just a football 101. You kick it in front of the player, let them run onto it. Even if it doesn't hit the target, boys, kick it in front of someone and let them run onto it, and then we'll see what happens. The ball should always be in motion. That's, to me, when St Kilda is at their best, is when the ball's always in motion. If it's literally we intercept the mark in the first minute of the game, and the first option is a long kick down the line to a Max King who's out of the goal square and not in his dangerous zone where I think he can do the most damage, we've got problems. Because Max King against West Coast last year played kind of predominantly in the forward 50, and he kicked 6, and it was his best game of the year. Set shot wise was perfect, his marking was elite, he was doing everything right and nearly won us the game off his own boot when we were down by a fair bit. So we need to learn from that and know that's where Max King plays his best footy. We don't need him running up the ground. Maybe Jack Hayes can do that. Maybe Rowan Marshall can do that. Maybe if we bring in Sharman, he can lead up. But these are the sort of questions that we need to answer if we want to become a good team and get results against teams like Fremantle. Because, you probably before the season would have looked at the fixture and gone, well, yeah, we'll beat Collingwood, and yeah, we should beat Fremantle even if it's in Perth. But we lose to Collingwood, and then this becomes obviously a question mark, and really every fixture for the rest of the year becomes a question mark. So we need to get some rhythm going, and for me, running and spreading is a key indicator of whether we're on or we're off. The other one is proactive footy. Not being reactive, not waiting for Fremantle to throw the first punch. Last week, we let Collingwood throw the punches early. We needed to let them get 35 points up, and then we made a move. Can we not do that? Can we be proactive from the start? That also gets the crowd out of the game. We need to quiet the crowd because they're going to be expecting a win. First Optus Stadium game for a while. They're going to be full of confidence after getting a win against Adelaide, even if it was 1 point, and they're going to expect a performance from their players. So we need to be able to take them out of the game. And that means starting fast, kicking the first couple of goals, settling, and then getting our rhythm going. And to me, I think we're a confidence team. Once we get on a roll, most teams find it hard to stop. The thing is, we don't get on a roll until the game's probably too far out of our reach. So from the bounce, we need to start fast. And last week, we didn't do that. So I hope the boys can do that. And if we're leading at quarter time, half time, that's when you can start feeling like, yeah, we're in this game, the boys are on. If we're down at quarter time, down by 3 or 4 goals at half time, you're like, we're chasing again. We're going to have a big third quarter to have any chance. And you can't rely on big 20-minute patches every week to get the wins, because teams are too good now, and they'll be able to just close that down. Another one that's related to run and spread is lower the eyes. You can run and spread, but we can still kick long. But I think on a field like Optus, it's going to be kind of encouraged to kick long. But if there's options short, just do it. And then that means that there's players running by. You kick long, it takes 4 or 5 Sainers out of the contest. If you're kicking short, there's more options for that marker to go hand or go for another short dart or maybe then go for the long ball over the top. So I think there's a number of ways that we can tackle this game, and that's the exciting thing for me is there's a number of ways to play Optus. Marvel, it's a bit more compact. I think we struggle to play any other way other than just bombing it long because we just feel inclined to get territory. But with Optus, bombing long doesn't get as much territory, so I think this forces us to run, spread, chain of handballs, and us supporters know that when we do chain of handballs and we're running through the middle, playing proactive, fast footy, that's when the Saints are on. So hopefully in the first 5-10 minutes, we can see that. And that means that the boys are switched on and hopefully we can get the result. The last one is selection. Big one. Selection integrity. We talked about it on the podcast. We've talked about it in the comments. Everyone wants selection integrity. This is on Rats. What that means, I don't know. Whether that means dropping a Higgins, I don't agree with. I think Higgins should play. Dean Kent, most likely, I think, could go. And then bringing in someone like a Sharman who kicked 4 on Fremantle last year. Clearly a bogey, it's one game, but you can just identify that whatever Sharman was doing didn't work for Fremantle. So bring in a player that has good record against them, whether it's 1 game or 10 games, and let him do his thing. I could imagine Sharman being a very handy player at Optus, leading and creating space for someone like King, and King didn't play in that game last year when we won by 10 goals. That was Sharman kicking 4. So I think with them both working together, that allows Membry to move up the ground, lets him do his thing, going into defence and taking intercept marks, or being that chop-out kick at half-back on the wing. And then the next kick, we've got King or Sharman and vice versa. And then Marshall if he's resting. And Jack Hayes, we can't forget. So we've got options there. It's just what we do at selection. And Tom Highmore, I think he's one that needs to come in. And that obviously allows maybe Jack Sinclair to stay in the centre, have Highmore at halfback rebounding, and then put Brad Hill on a wing and let him run against his old team on the ground that he played so well at 3 years ago. So this is what, to me, selection's almost the biggest thing. If we get that right, there's a start. If we don't, then a lot of people are going to be asking questions with Rats. So we need to tick the box on selection, and then from there it's just attitude and execution. We do that and we lose, we can live with it, can't we? But if we don't and we lose, that's hard to swallow, like last Friday night. So for me, I'm feeling confident in a way that the boys will respond because they've done it too many times before. It's just what we do after that. So a response now will be great, but then to back it up and not have to respond after a bad loss every second week would be great. So I think we've got the players to do damage. We've got the forward line. The midfield can definitely break even. They did well enough last year in round 22, and we should look back on that and be confident. And their backline is solid, but if we play smart, we can cut them open. And if we play bomb footy, that's just going to work into their hands, and obviously that's going to feed their rebounds, and they'll score from that. So we need to be careful with Fremantle because at home they're a different team, and they're a team that's expected to rise. But so are we, and we need to prove it as well. So I'm firmly expecting a response from the boys. Whether that's a win or not, I don't know. But hopefully they do come away with the win, and we can be 1-1 after round 2, going into Maddie's match with a bit more confidence. So I'll leave it there, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed that. Thought I'd add my thoughts in there, jot some notes down. Really appreciate you watching. If you're a Sainter and you haven't subscribed, please hit the subscribe button. We're growing every day, and it'd be amazing for you to join Saints TV YouTube channel. And I'll be back hopefully after the game, or definitely after the game, for my live review on Facebook, probably at around 9:30 on Sunday night, Eastern Standard Time. So until then, guys, enjoy the rest of your week, and go you mighty Sainers. See you guys.